So Frank, the question is, how long did it take to convert to green check versus the manual process? Any best practices to share? So presumably, I think this
Uh,
question is about like changing your processes. Was that difficult? Did it take a long time?
what I will share is one of the big things that I had embedded into my program and really was the result of OCC supervision was we probably were overreaching in some of the areas of the information that we were looking from our clients. One of the big things that we were sort of, I wanted to say, chased down the rabbit hole was monitoring sort of not only the dollar values that ran through the accounts, but the weights that were produced and sold at the MRB tier one side. And that became unmanageable quickly. And, so those are one of the things we backed out in the conversion. I will say Paul was very gracious, sat with my committee, our board members, explained to them why that was sort of unnecessary to begin with, and that the green check validation and monitoring of sales was a great resource and third-party validation of that information that's being provided. So the conversion itself took about maybe 3 months all told to get all of our clients engaged, to get the program revised and approved, and to get everyone trained and up to speed. As far as giving you any sort of heads up on what to expect, it's going to be a bit of a challenge in the sense that there's a lot of moving parts. Green Check is going to walk you through standing up, how you want your parameters set within the platform, your peer analysis, the different types of accounts you're going to be engaged in, and how that will play out within the platform. So there's a lot to consider before just sort of, jumping in and moving into an automated program. Really understanding the impacts of your current manual program, costs associated with it, training your clients and making sure that they understand what you're after. And I think the biggest thing is also understanding your own marketplace. Managing marijuana businesses in Oklahoma is probably a lot different than managing marijuana businesses in Arizona. And so there has to be some sort of, correlation there between, the risk profile of your overall market and how you manage that and what you're going to do versus, other types of businesses you might engage in that realm. So, Oklahoma has, a lot of different licenses. I think a lot of times the barrier to entry there is much lower than a state such as Arizona and others. And so, the risk profile of your businesses are going to be dramatically different depending on the market you're in. And that will also impact your implementation as well. But it is, I found it to be a great resource for onboarding, monitoring, and, I probably would not want to go back to a manual process at this point.
Well,
So
oh,
our
sorry, Johnny, go
I
ahead.
hope that helps. I think I wandered around a little bit there, but I hope that helps.
No, that was a good answer. Thanks.
I was going to say that included in our presentation deck that will be shared with all of our participants today is information about Republic Bank of Arizona, a little bit here, a link to their website. They do have a specific landing page for their MRB program, and it's got a little bit of information should you like to take a look. I'm going to go through just a couple more slides before we wrap things up today. But Paul, before I do that, anything else you would like to add, or Frank?
Well, Frank, I do have one more question, and this often comes up, is when you're looking for automation is a pretty broad term, and there are, different approaches, different options out there. At the risk of, asking for an endorsement, what was it about the green check approach that was more attractive to you than perhaps some of the others that are out there?
That's a good question. I have looked at some of the other product offerings out there. I think the biggest thing for me was, number one, the expertise that they sort of brought to the table. They seem to understand that this is a compliance program. Other partners I've talked to, potentially they wanted to focus more on maybe payments or other aspects of their platform, not necessarily just the compliance and the data-driven information needed. So that was something that was definitely a plus when it came to Green Check. The other thing that I didn't see a lot of in some of the other platforms, of course, is that documentation flow, that internal auditing function, the reporting function, to where you can pull information about your client's status, what has been provided, what may not have been provided. And there's all additional levels of, data tags and insights that you can get into the Green Check platform that we never would have had in a manual program. The peer analysis. I mean, I think most regulators will say, if you're banking a retailer or a wholesaler, how do you know that those volumes are reasonable? Do you have sort of a peer analysis that says, okay, well, this person in this location is making X. We have a similar location in another area that's making Y. Those two should be within reason. And so you can get additional validations within a platform such as this that you may not see in a manual program or even other programs. I'm not sure I saw sort of that peer analysis in some of the other platforms I looked at. So that was another sort of big plus there for the Green Check platform.
And my final question would be, before we just have our final couple of slides about what Green Check is and what we can offer, is, there's a banking I have found coming into the industry is very much a set of relationships and conversations, and folks ask each other all the time about the programs they're building, the issues they've come up with. So if you were approached by one of your friends at another financial institution and they were asking you, we're kind of interested in cannabis, is this something we should do? What would you say to someone like that? Is this something you should do? Is this something where you're like, we're doing it, but oh my goodness, I don't know that I'd do it again? Like, what would you say?
Well, yeah, I have had those conversations, and I think you have sort of hit on some of those today. What is the purpose, right? What's your goal there? Is it low cost of funds? Are you trying to make some profits on service charges? I think you have to have the right reasons. I would say, for us, it definitely was not service charge income. It was definitely more about building relationships as a community bank, being able to bring in those low cost of funds and develop sort of, larger relationships. Knowing your market. I think a good example is sort of like if you wanted to do ag lending at your bank, you probably wouldn't hire a commercial lender without any agricultural lending experience. Same thing goes for marijuana banking. You're going to have someone internally that understands the market, the risk reward profiles, understands sort of what's going on in your backyard as it relates to the marijuana business in your state. If you don't sort of have a grasp on that, understanding sort of the risk profile of the market you're in, I think you may have a difficult time, building a successful program. So those, I guess, be my two sort of, advice columns there is, think about why you want to do it. Is it a reasonable expectation at this point in time? For example, Arizona, where you have a finite number of licenses, I think there may be 160 or so in operations. The market is fairly mature. We've been open since 2013. And so the availability to garner market share may be a little bit more difficult. If you're starting in a market that's fairly new, that's an immature market, there's going to be additional risk there, right? You might be able to garner market share, but you may also be dealing with unsophisticated operators that may or may not know how to manage these things effectively, may not understand the compliance on the state or the bank side, and may make decisions or take risks that you're not comfortable with. And so, you really need to understand the market, has somebody that is, has the time, energy, and effort to become a subject matter expert. Otherwise, I think it'll be a lot more difficult to, make headwinds there.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate your insight. We do have at the end an opportunity for any last questions if anybody has them. But Julie, if you want to wrap up,
Sure.
Let's go ahead and do that.
Okay. So just a few things to keep in mind. If you decide you're going to launch a program, choose a champion. Make sure you have someone who's been clearly identified as having ownership responsibility of your program. That is what makes these programs successful. You can imagine Frank's a pretty good champion. Make sure that you have someone identified in your institution who can take on that role. Establish clearly defined goals for your program. I talked about, your approach, how many businesses you want to take on, all of your reporting, all of that. Make sure that you really have that well defined. Our recommendation, be bold and be cannabis friendly. Well, obviously you have the choice between having a discrete or public program. Programs with the highest level of success are those that are shared publicly, that really share with their community that they are cannabis friendly institutions. Doesn't mean you have to take out billboards, but making sure that you consider things like having a page on your website, like you just saw for Republic Bank of Arizona. Get involved in the industry, let them know that you're out there to support businesses who are seeking financial relationships. And again, critical, that regular reporting to your board. It's important that everyone within the institution, especially those at the executive and board level, stay informed as to the progress of your program. That allows you to make course correction along the way if you need to, but also lets you be able to celebrate successes of your team in reaching the goals and those targets that you set out for your program. Couple things to share with you about GreenCheck. I mentioned at the beginning, sort of in the different areas of service that we provide. One of those is that we do work, and it's my team specifically that works with financial institutions who are interested in deciding whether or not cannabis banking is the right fit for their institution. We do take you through all of the steps involved with developing a board presentation, including a risk assessment workshop. I mentioned the tool that we share with you. We go through that financial pro forma with you as well, really give you information specific to your area, your market. We work with you to talk about market strategy as well as developing a cannabis banking policy. In addition, GreenCheck itself is here to add efficiency, safety, and scalability to your program. So we do offer for financial institutions that are already operating in this space. We offer the ability for GreenCheck to review and help you update your existing program policy and procedures, as well as perhaps convert to an automated solution like GreenCheck, as Frank just went through sort of that process of implementing or converting from a manual program to one that involved our platform. We walk you through that entire process, work with you and provide training for your staff, help you update your documents, your internal procedures, policies, etc. Work with you and your businesses to help get them onto our platform. And then we continue to partner with you to help you grow your program. So once we have brought a new financial institution onto our platform, the support doesn't end there. We literally partner with you as long as you're in the industry to help support the businesses that you're banking, help you support your institution. We're constantly releasing additional features and functionality in our platform to help you manage your program efficiently. So I certainly encourage anyone who is interested in getting more information to reach out to us, and I'll provide that information in just one moment. But before I do that, Paul, can you talk about the accredited cannabis banking professional program that you actually host?
Sure. So just to let everybody know, we have the boot camp and we covered a lot of stuff. It's 2.5 hours. I appreciate everybody's commitment to the time, but I think Frank would also agree that we're kind of only scratching the surface right now. There's so much you need to know about cannabis banking. So we do have a accredited cannabis banking professional program. It's delivered with our partner Bankers Web. It's 8 sessions, and if you go through it, you take an exam, you will receive that accreditation. It's being used, I think about 150 people have gone through the program in the last year. It's used by folks who are looking for jobs in cannabis. It's also used sometimes by financial institutions that are looking to make sure that the folks involved in their program are up to speed. Like Frank said, you have to have subject matter experts on staff. So if you're interested in taking part, we're happy to answer any questions. And there is a discount code available to past and present Cannabis Banking Bootcamp attendees. So don't hesitate to reach out.
As far as reaching out, links to connect with Paul and I on LinkedIn are available here. Please, feel free to reach out to us, and also reach out and check out Green Check's website. We make lots of information available to anyone who would like to know more or learn more about the cannabis industry state by state. We actually have a state by state resource that includes information on the current programs that are sort of active in a state. Lots of information there, and you can also follow us on LinkedIn. After the presentation is over, as Paul mentioned, in a couple days from now or so, I will be reaching out to participants to share the recording as well as the slides with you. But in the meantime, if there's anything that we can help you with, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And Paul, I will let you open up the floor for final questions.
All right, it looks like we don't have any other questions. So Frank, I'll give you one last opportunity. Is there the one thing that you wanted to throw in there as we say goodbye to folks?
No, I think we've covered quite a bit today. I will say, if you want to have those type of conversations with me one-on-one, you can probably find my contact information on the website. Be happy to do that. I believe there is at least one person on this call today that I saw that I've had that conversation with. So always happy to discuss sort of, my experiences in a little bit more detail, or, if you have other specific questions, I'm happy to help. I think, the more that we can get, more of these businesses we can get into the financial institutions, the more we can get transparently banked, the easier it gets for everyone within the industry as well as the financial institutions as well. The idea of trying to get as much cash out of the system as we can, that's, the more banks that are willing to go out here and, open up these accounts, the more likely that will be accomplished at some point.
I'd like to thank you for being a cannabis banking pioneer, having done it as early as 2015, pretty soon after the FinCEN guidance was issued. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for being so generous with your
Thanks for having me
through the process. It was great having you. And
thank you. Appreciate it.
Julie, thank you so much for your time as well. And thank you to everybody who attended. We really, really appreciate it. And we're happy to answer any questions. If you have them, feel free to reach out.
Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Have a great afternoon, folks.